Good afternoon, everybody. We are here at nap time. So I want to acknowledge that. And so we're going to push through that nap time together. We have an action-packed and tight program. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. And so here's how it's going to go, is that we have open and intros. You're seeing that happen in real time right now. And then we're going to do an overview of the Housing for Healthy Communities Initiative. Then we're going to have a transition. You'll note that there are 10 minutes for that transition time. Note it doesn't say break, it says transition. And it's to walk from here to the room there, or for some of you to not walk from here. So I am confident that we can do that in less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes for that transition. Then we're going to do our breakouts in the next room. It's going to be ADUs, the starter homes we've been waiting for. And in here, a communications and housing advocacy speaker panel. Housing action starts with us. You should have been told, when you signed up, you picked one. And when you came in and registered, you should have been reminded which one you signed for. But ADUs over there, housing advocacy and communications in here. There are great speakers in each. I wish I could be in both. And luckily they will be recorded so that you can see them later. So you actually don't have to choose forever, just have to choose for now. All right. You will find an adorable paddle on your chair that looks like this. And when I say you, I mean half of you, because we don't have them for everybody. The rest of you just have hands. And this is kind of the old-fashioned way for us to stay active and get engaged. It's just a simple tool. And so we're going to practice because, like I said, it's nap time and nobody's napping today. We're going to practice. I'm going to say some stuff and you are going to hold up your +1 or your heart or your hand as appropriate. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with some really easy ones. I love puppies. Thank you. And springtime West County lambs. Oh my God, I was gonna prompt you for the extra awe. I have so little trust. Thank you for that. Good friends tell friends when they have spinach in their teeth. And this is a commitment for later during the reception. Okay. I am disappointed to learn that high diving cats are not real. And we need more homes for young families and for our workforce and for our seniors. And no one should have to worry about that. Yes. Okay, I'm feeling confident that you guys can use these throughout the day today. That was an excellent display of skill. And so, and I'm gonna encourage you to do that. Show your speaker some love, keep your heart rate up. Again, no napping today. Okay, so now, after we do these breakouts, I want you to know that we're gonna have another transition. 10 minutes, transition. It's a short walk. And then there's gonna be an action session, and then we're gonna close, and it's gonna be fast. And let me tell you, we're gonna do our best actually to close and get you out into the reception, which will then be there. You're gonna transition back, and we'll all get to hang out. So we're gonna stay on task today. How's everybody with staying on task? That went well. Okay, you were well trained. All right, we're gonna take just a little data real quick. So everybody grab your phone, and I'm hoping that for most of this day that we keep your attention better than your phone does, that we are more interesting than your email and your text and your socials. So if you could do your best to minimize your phone use to the times we ask you. So I realize this is kind of mixed message around phone use, but in any case, we're going to use this tool called Mentimeter, and you've probably used it before, and you have definitely used it at one of our seminars if you've been here. We're just going to get a little data. So the great thing about Mentimeter is that you don't need to have a password or an account or two-factor authentication. You just need to point your phone at that QR code. And Omar, that running numbers, how many people have responded? Look at, or something. I don't actually know what's going on. Oh, everyone's entering your name. That's right. That's what's happening. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. I'm feeling good. Are we feeling good? Oh, Wi-Fi. Stephanie is running the Wi-Fi up, literally. See the activity? The Wi-Fi network is B guest, and the password is capital W, the word welcome with the exclamation point, an enthusiastic welcome. Is this echoey everywhere? I don't know, like, yes. Maybe it needs to be turned down. It's not at the back. All right. We definitely don't have quite everybody in there. We're gonna just give this just another minute. And then we'll go ahead and who needs another minute? Raise your something. Okay, we're gonna give another minute. Probably. I think so. Okay. We're going to dive in. So we just have a few questions. I always like to start with this one question that asks you today, what is it? Do they see it on their phone, Omar? Oh, for gosh sakes. See, it is real. It's not AI. We have normal problems. There we go. Okay. The question, there we go. What is the one word that best backwards. What is the one word that best expresses how you are feeling about housing right now in the North Bay? What is the one word? And that, so you type that in, free response, I think it's called. You should have been here at sound check, man. It was perfect. Okay, what is the one word that best expresses how you feel about housing right now in the North Bay? Please type it into your little answer box. Yikes! I love watching it change. I had a colleague tell me that you said, you know, word clouds are not science. And I was like, but they're super cool. And they resonate with people. And they do say something. Okay. Let's just give that another minute and then, or 10 seconds. And then we're going to ask the next question, which is to get a little information about you. And we appreciate that because it helps us tailor our programs. It helps us with grant applications. Is what sector or sectors do you represent? Can I just tell you how cool it is that community member is outnumbering anything else? Anyone just, that is cool. And that is exactly what we need, which we'll talk about later. And I think all the advocates here will agree with me that that is cool. Okay. That seems pretty stable. Thank you. And then here's a couple questions about your geography. Are you all seeing the questions? I just want to make sure. No. Oh, yes, it's slow. The Wi-Fi. Are you seeing the question or no? Yes. Okay. So we're just not gonna, okay. All right. And then the next one is around impact. How have you been impacted by local housing scarcity and unaffordability? And I want you to notice, even though I sometimes slip, that I'm really trying hard to stop saying housing crisis. But instead to say local housing scarcity and unaffordability, because those are just facts and they're facts that we can change. The crisis is what happens because there's not enough housing, because it's too expensive, because there's not enough time. But we'd like to know all that apply. How have you been impacted by local housing scarcity and unaffordability? Okay. Have you, next question. Let's do the next question. Have you attended a Gen H summit before? This should be an easy one. Wow, I love a lot of new people, kind of even split, but a lot of new people. That's great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being new. And then I think the last one, since that's sort of settling down, is who brought a friend here with them today? Who brought a friend? Who wrangled somebody who wasn't planning to come? See, this was bad. We should have just been like, yes. So it was only, but that's a lot of yeses. So can I get a applause for all the people who brought a friend? Everybody who brought a friend. So we're going to talk about that. Okay. So we're going to hopefully we'll minimize the phone use kind of for the rest of the day. Although listen, if you need to snap something and put it on your social saying you're here with the hashtag We Are Gen H, that's okay too. Again, hashtag We Are Gen H. Just tell them you're here. Tell them you have a great time. Okay. We're going to get into it now, into kind of some substance here. After the report release this is driving me crazy. After the report release in November, one of the attendees, who's a really great partner, said to me, you know what, I'm kind of tired of hearing about the impact of this housing crisis. I'm tired of hearing about this. And I just want to talk about solutions. And I was like, I hear you, my friend. I hear you. I want to acknowledge that it's just long and sometimes exhausting work. And, you know, we're undoing policy that federal policy, state policy, local policy that has been embedded into our ordinances, into our laws, into our systems for almost a century. And that's complicated to undo. And homes are big, complicated widgets. They are hard to build, and they are hard to build in a big, complicated, bureaucratic environment. And even in like the best case scenario, because of that, it's not fast. And we all in here, and you saw like the different sectors, we all in here come from different backgrounds and have different ranges of experience. And so it's important that we give everybody kind of a different point of entry. And also sometimes people like me have to hear things more than once for things to sit in. And it's incumbent upon us, Gen H, to grow our movement, to grow this tent, to be bigger and bigger. So for those of you who are like long and deep in this work, first of all, thank you. And second of all, I thank you in advance for your patience when we are repeating ourselves. I repeat myself all the time. So thank you for being patient with those kinds of things. But today we are going to talk about some solutions, and we're going to talk about solutions that we are excited about. And as important, we're going to talk about how we work together to move those forward. And hopefully we're going to walk out re-engaged and inspired and refueled for the next year of work. Because right now it is especially hard to stay engaged and inspired sometimes in the context of the country and world in which we're in. And let's just acknowledge that. It's distracting, it's destabilizing, it is sometimes scary. There is a tremendous amount of local need. And so doing the kind of long grind of systems change, of upstream work, it is challenging. So when I'm struggling in that moment, I look to people who are wiser than me. And luckily there's just like a really long list of those for ideas that can anchor me and inspire me and drive me. And I'm going to share a few of those today. And we have the first one, and this one I think about a lot. We are here to awaken from our illusion of separateness. Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Yes, we are getting extra deep today. Thich Nhat Hanh said that the illusion of separateness is the root cause of human suffering and fear and environmental destruction. And this idea, whether or not it resonates with you personally or spiritually, it is really completely applicable to a community system. And Gen H's theory of change is grounded in the understanding that communities are intersectional in nature. And I'll let you in on a little secret, is that we are not really a housing organization. We are a vibrant communities organization. We envision vibrant communities where everyone has a place to call home and can contribute, not just survive, contribute to an equitable, healthy, and resilient North Bay. Who can get behind that? We are a sustainability organization. We're a prosperity organization. We're an equity organization. We believe in the connectedness of community members and organizations and infrastructure and systems. And so the motivation to relentlessly pursue our mission, which is very much, see how we're like that? That's so good. It's very much about housing, comes from the knowledge that housing is foundational. That when families have access to shelter at a price and a quality and a location that allows them to meet their other basic needs, then our vision is possible, because health outcomes will improve and educational outcomes will improve and transportation related emissions will decrease and individual economic stability will increase and discretionary income will increase, which all the good local business people will like, and income to our jurisdictional coffers will increase, improving our infrastructure and our community assets and our transportation and our public safety, and more families will move here to fill our classrooms and local businesses can thrive. Individual levels of happiness will improve, reliance on social safety net will decrease, crime will decrease, and even life expectancy will be longer. And I'm not making that up because it's science, that's real. The data says this. Communities will be stronger when we build the amounts and types of housing we need, and when we have a complete housing continuum so that we can meet the needs of people as they change throughout their lifetimes. This understanding of connectedness drives me, because we all know that when you do nothing in a connected system, that things do not stay the same. Because that connectedness drives a feedback loop. And whether or not that feedback loop is negative or positive is up to us. Critically, the word ignore is a verb. We're making a choice when we choose to ignore a problem. So let's remember that Generation Housing started 7 years ago because research started by the Community Foundation, Sonoma County, shout out, concluded that the single biggest obstacle to housing production was the lack of public and political will. And if we travel in the Wayback Machine, all the way to ancient Rome, and ask what emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius would say about that, he'd say, the obstacle becomes the way. That's why the response to this conclusion was clear. We have to start an advocacy organization. We have to educate and inspire and organize and build a movement that creates a counter narrative that powers housing solutions. And so that's us. That is Gen H. You are Gen H. The obstacle is not going away. It just forces us to get creative and smart, forces us to build power. We are Gen H, and we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And you're all doers in this room, and so I bet like 10% of you have this taped on your mirror, or it's in your yard on a black sign from Move On, attributed, I think, to somebody else, but this is the original. We are the ones. There are people who think that this problem can't be solved, or it has to be the feds, it has to be the state, it's too big, and yes, we need federal help, we need state help. We will accept that. And today we're going to talk about the intersection of some state laws and local decisions. But I like to remind people that most land use laws are local in nature. Even though they look almost the same everywhere, they are voted on by city council members, by y'all who stood up and raised their hand. You guys get to change them. They are not written in stone. They are not wheeled in on barrels. in barrels. They're changeable. So the people who change these laws, y'all city council members, they're elected, they're supported, they are moved, they are inspired, they are pushed by us. And let me tell you that the naysayers, the NIMBYs, will always make themselves heard because people show up to say no. They show up to show anger. They show up to maintain the status quo. Inertia is powerful. A body at rest tends to stay at rest, and there's no slide for this because it's just a law of nature. So it seemed to not need one. So we have to show up to say yes. Okay, and so finally, my final words of wisdom, or Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung said, when things get complicated or confusing, just look for and take the next right action. And this is helpful for me when I'm particularly overwhelmed. And it obviously helps a lot of folks because it's in all kinds of self-help books and productivity books and 12-step programs. And we're here today to talk about the next right actions for Gen H and what your personal and organizational next right actions are going to be to help move these forward. And with that, I think we're going to get into housing for healthy communities. And so I'm going to invite up Omar Lopez to help me because you're going to get tired of me talking today. And Omar Lopez is our policy coordinator, but also I just want to mention that if you weren't there, he was recently crowned. Was there a crown involved? No. A beautiful plaque. He was recently plaqued as the Young Democrat of the Year. Okay, I'm gonna go get my note.
Please do. Thank you, everybody. Like Jen mentioned, my name is Omar. I'm the policy coordinator at Generation Housing. So across California, a growing body of research has examined a central question. What policies actually move the needle on housing production? And importantly, which of those are locally controlled? What Generation Housing found is that the answers are surprisingly consistent. There are a handful of policy areas where local jurisdictions have the greatest influence over whether housing gets built or not. Based on that research, we developed our housing action plan. Next, perfect. With 4 policy buckets. Zone for people, which is allowing more diverse housing types in our neighborhoods. Fast and fair, creating predictable and efficient approval processes. Incentivize affordability, making sure housing can financially pencil. And people over planet, reducing costly parking mandates that reduce and often prevent housing. Together, these 4 areas represent the places where local government is able to make decisions that can make the biggest difference in whether housing gets built. I lost my spot. Give me one sec. Okay. So over the past years, Generation Housing and our partners have been working across these areas. In incentivize affordability, we helped advance impact fee reform, helping lower development costs that are further complicate the already complicated system of housing financing. Say that 5 times. In Fast and Fair, we supported efforts like board consolidation and objective design standards, helping streamline decision-making so housing projects can move through the approval process more predictably and efficiently. In and through People and Planet over parking, we are working on shifting the conversation about how parking mandates increase housing costs and limit what can be built. All of these policy areas matter, but this year we're intentionally focused on our work in one of them, zone for people. Because zoning ultimately determines what kind of homes are allowed in communities, zoning can often get in the way of housing diversity, limiting the type of housing that gets built. If zoning allows more options, we create the conditions for more diverse homes that meet the diverse needs of our community. It kind of makes sense, right? That's where Housing for Healthy Communities initiative comes in. This initiative focuses on 2 practical policies that cities can use to expand housing. Before I go into any more detail on these policies, Jen, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think we have I just wanted to kind of remind us, that in our last report, it was kind of a myth busting report, and it should be a slide next yes, thank you. Nice job, Stephanie. That talks about our housing need and what kind of homes that we need. And, we've done research that says that we need 58,000 homes. Now it's about 50, based on the progress we've made in Sonoma County, to meet our needs and our needs going through 2030. And there is an idea that like, oh, we need all of these high rises. And actually to meet these, the research said that we needed a real mix of housing. And so this is the kind of the mix of different housing right there. And the teal color, or Tiffany blue, as I like to say, is sort of small plexes. And that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about when we're talking about SB 10, which we'll talk about today, are the small plexes. And that can be a lot of the homes that fit right into infill lots that are available, or underused lots, or undeveloped lots, and are also kind of things that we used to build. But that's got to be a big part of those plexes here. And this says just 2 to 6 units. And actually in these policies we're talking about 2 to 10 units. It's like 29,000 of our homes, but just kind of sprinkled throughout the county, all in our neighborhoods, sort of the way they used to be. And I want to show, I think the next slide is the perfect corner, what I call the perfect corner. No, oh, I got it. I think I got ahead of myself. Well, I'm doing it now. Sorry. The perfect corner. This is like we made a version of the corner where I own a home in Sonoma, in Santa Rosa. It's kind of like this, where one corner is a house and an ADU, and another corner there's a little 10-unit apartment building, and another corner there's a courtyard apartment building, and then the other corner there's a single family home. And it's this great, vibrant neighborhood. And there's a school nearby, and there's a YMCA nearby, and there are shops nearby, and there are kids, and there are people of different income levels. And this is in one of the most sought after neighborhoods in the county. It's in the McDonald Mansion neighborhood. And the reason why there's this diversity of homes there is because they were all built before 1940. So when we're talking about like the laws that we're talking about today, we are not talking about like new groundbreaking stuff. We're actually talking about doing it like we used to do it. And the neighborhood I live now in Sebastopol is like that too. We have a mix of homes, and I get notices on my door all the time that says, do you want to sell your home? People want to live there. These are the neighborhoods where people want to live. All right, so I think I got out of order, so sorry about that. I want to say one more thing. The Turner Center just released a report that everyone should read if you like to read wonky housing reports, if you're that kind of everyone. And it was really talking about housing construction and housing innovation and what we need to move forward. And really critically, and we're real believers in this, that we've got to do factory built housing, that we've got to do real housing construction innovation. Like the joke is, and it's unfortunately not that funny, is that the only housing construction innovation that's been made in the last 100 years is the nail gun. And so we've got to do things different. But it says, but even for that to work, we have to do these kind of regulatory changes to create the environment of certainty and the welcoming environment that even allows those to be effective. So it kind of goes hand in hand. All right, I'm going to give it back to you.
All right, can we go back to the SB 10 slide? Awesome, thank you, Jen. So the first policy I'm going to talk about is SB 10. SB 10 allows cities to create zoning that supports small apartment buildings, think duplexes, threeplexes, quadplexes, and it can go up to 10 units. These aren't large developments, which are important, but not the only piece to our housing puzzle. They're small-scale projects that can fit into existing communities and expand housing opportunities in places such as Sonoma County, where sprawl is limited, for good reason, right? We don't want to, no hate to anybody from like the South Bay, but we don't want to look like that. We like our green space, right? So we have to grow inside our communities and inside our boundaries. Next slide. Our second policy is AB 1033, which you might have already heard of since the city of Sebastopol has become the first city in Sonoma County to adopt an AB 1033 compliant policy. Let's give them a round of applause. I don't know if anybody's in the room. ADUs are, so AB 1033 builds on something we've become very familiar with in California, ADUs. ADUs are already one of the fastest ways new homes are being added in our region. Currently, ADUs can only be rented or, for free if you have a family member. You can't sell them. So AB 1033 would allow those homes to be condoized and sold as starter homes, opening up new opportunities for homeownership. And as you can tell, we have almost 2,000, a little over 2,000 units planned in Sonoma County and Napa. So allowing some of these units to be sold would have a great impact in creating potentially a dramatic increase in entry-level ownership opportunities. You will be hearing more about these tools today and as we continue our Housing for Healthy Communities initiative. If you signed up to the ADU breakout session, you will be going deeper into how AB 1030 works in practice and how you can implement it. But we still wanted everybody to understand this broader strategy. These are practical zoning tools that can help communities create more housing while fitting within existing neighborhoods. As I hinted at earlier, we already started our advocacy and have even had a win in Sebastopol. So I'm going to turn it back to Jen so she can go into more details on our advocacy work.
Thank you, Omar. Okay, so these are state laws, yes, but they are opt-in. In fact, no one in the state has really opted into SB 10 yet. We hope that we have our first jurisdiction that completely, fully adopts it, and I think that we're on track to do that. AB 1033, you have to opt in. But these are really powerful tools. They are particularly powerful combined with the SECRA reform that was passed a year ago. And we don't like that that they've been sitting on the shelf. We'd like this automatic upzone. So we have to do some advocacy around this. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, in the advocacy plan, there's always a combination of kind of behind the scenes advocacy. We meet and we have partners who meet regularly with jurisdictional leadership, whether it's elected or staff. And then we have to do public advocacy. So we're going to have scheduled public comment, like have people show up on a day, public comment on items not on the agenda before these things are on the agenda. We'll have at the priority jurisdictions, 101 corridor, we're going to have public educational events and materials and social media campaigns. We will do presentations to any kind of like club or association, anyone who wants us to come talk about it, we will do that because we ultimately want more people to come to public comment. We'll need letters to the editor. We'll of course have a petition and a sign-on letter, organizational sign-on letter like we usually do for these kinds of things. But we are going to rally folks to support jurisdictions moving forward. And those leaders in here who want to move forward, you are going to get some pushback because you're always going to get some pushback. It's completely predictable. And I guess it's like the same handful of people who are always pushing back. But we will be there to have your back. We will be there to support you and have your back. So we are going to push you and also we're going to support you. Status right now on these things, and we've just been working on this for the last few months, is that in the city of Santa Rosa, there are planned study sessions for AB 1033 and SB 10, and there's strong support right now for AB 1033, and there's growing support for SB 10. This would be, Santa Rosa just passed a missing middle ordinance that does an upzone, but it's not it does standard design codes, but it's not necessarily the broad swath of upzone that SB 10 is. But I think that we've got some support there and some momentum, and so we're going to be working on that. And obviously, the city of Santa Rosa can have the most impact in the county, and so that is a high priority. Sebastopol already adopted AB 1033, again, leading, we love it. And then in the county, SB 10 is a housing element program, and they are planning to move it forward this year, and AB 1033 has growing support there, so we're working there. In Healdsburg, we think this is an extra perfect fit because they have a growth management ordinance that prohibits them from growing too much and hopefully will go away someday. But right now, these kinds of things would be exempt from the GMO. So they're a perfect fit. We need some community support for the council members who are interested in moving this forward. And we think that we can get that and to move these forward. Now, there are some naysayers on these things. And I'll tell you what the biggest thing we hear is. We hear it's not going to do that much. It's not going to do that much. And this is the most confusing argument to me, because it could do something and there's absolutely nothing to lose. And what if there are, on AB 1033, what if there are 5 young families who buy a condo ADU? Are you going to tell them that that didn't do that much? Because I'm pretty sure that just gave them a foothold into the wealth building system that dominates in our country. And it's not that hard. What it's doing is creating opportunity. And if you go into most cities, go to Seattle, go to Denver, the cities that are really starting to deal with their housing crisis in a real way, Boise, you're going to see these small plexes sprinkled throughout. And it's a way that fits really nicely in the community. And they add up. And it's a lot of what we need. We're not going to do everything with skyscrapers. A skyscraper is it? There are people who think that we've built recently are skyscrapers, but that's because we're in Sonoma County. And it's also because people forgot what building looks like, honestly. It's been so long, you know, but we need a diversity of homes and we need a housing continuum. So housing is so complicated in terms of its regulatory environment. And each kind of housing, a single family home, an ADU, a small plex, a capital A affordable housing deed restricted, a large apartment complex, a market rate apartment complex, each of those has their own path. And so we've got to clear each one of those paths separately and create opportunity on all those paths so that we can feed the whole continuum. So there is unfortunately no silver bullet, I've said before, and you know, there's a silver buckshot and we have to do all the things. That's how we get past this. That's how we deal with our housing scarcity and affordability problem. So this whole, like, it's not going to do that much. And I keep thinking of like all of these different metaphors, but the one that really sank is like, that has really stuck with me is because there's like the rhinoceros that it takes, you know, how you kill a rhinoceros is 1,000 mosquitoes or 10,000 mosquitoes or something. I'm not sure how many mosquitoes it takes, but a lot. Or like you're in a sinking rowboat and you're like, I've only got these spoons. And you're like, well, it's not going to do that much. I guess I'll just sink. You will bail. You will use those spoons. So we need to use all our tools. We need to use all our tools. All right, I think that's that. I think that's that. We've done it. Okay, so that means that we are starting our 10-minute transition. 10-minute transition. Get a drink of water, get a snack, stay, go next door. We've got great speakers. Thank you. We're excited about the afternoon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Who's excited about the afternoon? Give me a something.
All right, well, a little bit about the why. We have 3 areas of focus. One is youth development. Many of you know we involved ourselves with children, you know, in childcare programs throughout Sonoma County. The other is healthy living, and the last is social responsibility. And housing we see as a health component. We saw Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the first time I saw that, I was a sophomore in college as a newly appointed psych major, and I did not know at the time how important that Maslow's hierarchy of needs would be through my career, and I keep seeing it come up over and over again because we seem to keep forgetting that the base needs are so important, and housing is one of those, and I'm glad that you're all here. You know, I have a personal connection to housing in that I have 3 children. I have 2 20-year-old twins who are juniors in college, and they go to school in LA, and I don't think they're coming back. Mainly, well, they tell me because there's nothing fun to do here, but it's also because there's no housing for them when they come here. And you know, I worry about that because, you know, I'm getting older and I had really anticipated that they were going to take care of me. And that doesn't seem to be happening, and I'm going to need to find a plan B. But, you know, housing doesn't just affect us personally, it affects us across many areas. What we see at the Y is that we have, you know, we have a staff that staff our childcare programs, our health programs, and it is increasingly hard to bring in professionals from outside the area because ultimately they can't afford to live here. And so we can't be the only business that is having to deal with that. but it's something that has become a real problem for us. The other thing is that we are in an aging community, right? And the YMCA, we have childcare programs throughout Sonoma County in school districts that are shrinking, right? Families can no longer afford to live here. They're moving elsewhere so they can raise their children. So housing is a health component, and it's something that we need to look at from that perspective. The Y is, what we're doing at the Y is, and I haven't said this publicly before, so you are the first ones to actually hear this in a public setting, but we are looking to build housing right next to our YMCA in downtown Santa Rosa. We bought the Beacons property, as we affectionately call it. I don't know what others call it. Maybe the eyesore on the corner is probably what the community calls it. But we bought that about 10 plus 12 years ago, I think, at this point, and with the idea of building a pool. And so when I came on 10 years ago, actually Jen was one of the on the hiring committee for me back then. And they said they wanted to build a pool. And so we went down that process and we looked at it, and it was really expensive. It was going to be $18 million to build this pool. And we started thinking, is this where we want to put our community money? Is this something that we want to invest in? And then some things happened, like, you know, a pandemic and fires and all that. And we kind of got put back on the back burner. And just recently in the last year, we decided to kind of look at it from a new lens, and ultimately decided that, you know, community need of housing is something that we want to be a part of the solution. So we are exploring that. We are going down that path. It is still very early. I would be sitting in the audience with you right now if I wasn't up here, because I'm still learning a lot about housing and what we need to do from our end. But just want you to know that, you know, I'm really grateful that all of you are here today, because I know that we're going to make a difference together in the community. So with that, I'm going to introduce our speakers. Housing Action Starts With Us is the name of this panel. And we've got 4 amazing speakers that are going to up and talk to us about how we can make an impact in the community around housing. So first up, you don't want me to read the whole bio? No? Okay. Well, I'm going to, you all know Jen Klose, our Executive Director for Gen Housing, and Jen's going to come up here and talk to us about lessons from housing, advocacy, lawyering, and cycling. So thank you, Jen. Give it up for Jen.
Thank you. I promise that it's not going to be me all day. In fact, I'm really trying to minimize it, and you're going to have some rock star speakers after me. So just one more of me, and then pretty much, and then you'll have some more people. But I do have some lessons from this 6 years. I've done a housing advocacy now, and from my many years as a lawyer, and also from cycling, surprisingly, that I think can help you all as housing advocates. So I want to talk about that. So whenever the Gen H team plans a public facing anything, whether it's an event, a report, a social media post, we go through this analysis that is called to do, to know, to feel. And I think it's stolen from the marketing world. I don't know, I'm a big thief of good things. And so we help, you know, let this guide us. And the first thing we do is we say, you know, who is the audience and who is the best messenger for that audience? Sometimes it's us, sometimes it's a guest speaker, sometimes it's, you know, a specific person, one-on-one thing. And then with this audience, what do we want them to do with this product that we're creating or this event we're creating? And in order for them to do that, what do they need to know and what do they need to feel? And honestly, it's often the same answers to those things. Like, we want them to get engaged. We want them to show up at public comment. We want them to do this, and to know that for them to do that, they need to know it's important, and they need to know that council members will listen, and they need to know a few facts, and they need to feel compelled. Like, it's often kind of the same thing, but we go through that analysis, and it really is guiding, and it's important. But let me start with defining the audience. And I'm going to say something that might blow your mind about advocacy and movement building. And that is, when you're doing advocacy and movement building, you do not need to change anyone's mind. You do not need to do it. In fact, don't try. It is really hard to change people's minds. Like, there's this saying like that we're changing hearts and minds, you know, and I've used it. I've stopped because honestly, it's kind of baloney. It's like shorthand for public will building. But not that many people change their mind about anything big. And I'd even challenge you to think about the last time that you changed your mind about anything of any depth or any consequence. So mostly it's baloney. And really, we can look to the state of the country, you know, to know that people are pretty stuck in their beliefs. So instead, we look to this spectrum of allies. And this is not our chart. It's from George Lakey. It's the guy who wrote, you know, What's the Matter with Kansas? Lots of things that you've probably read. And we look to this to say, who is our target audience? And generally, our target audience, because don't forget that the obstacle is the way, we need to create a counter narrative, get smarter and creative to create political push or political cover for the outcome we need. To create that, we just need to look at our allies. There are always going to be naysayers. There are always going to be NIMBYs. There are going to be people who protect what they think is theirs and to protect the status quo, and people who are afraid of change. They are driven by their fear, and they're going to use every argument at their disposal. They're there. They're not changing. So what we want our active allies, the people who agree with us and agree with us publicly and say it out loud in all the ways you can say it out loud, to be active. And then we also want to look at that next slice, that little purple sliver, and to our passive allies, the people who agree with us, who say, I'm really worried that my kids and grandkids aren't going to be able to live here, or I can't hold on to my employees because they keep having to move, or why is there so much traffic? Because people are driving from Lake County to come to work. You know, like, who are the people who agree with us, but aren't agreeing with us in an active way, in an out loud way, and move them to become active allies. Now, because you are here, I am guessing that you are allies of some sort, that you are coming in the purple or the pink. And a lot of you are active, and I know you are because I see you already supporting the work that we do. And some of you maybe are passive, and today might be the day when you move over, you decide, I'm going to become an active ally. But we need both of you then to be looking for the people who can move from the purple to the pink. That's where the work is. And aren't you glad that that's where the work is, that we don't need to change people's minds? We need not be concerned about the people who oppose us, because that's really hard. Talk about hard conversations. Those are hard conversations. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough assets to have those conversations, and we don't need to. All right. Once we've defined the audience, we ask, who's the best messenger for this audience? And when we're talking to active allies, or maybe even some passive allies, then the advocates could be the right messengers. The Gen H, the YIMBY, the Greenbelt, we might be the right messengers. We have a trusted relationship, some kind of relationship of respect, hopefully, that you listen to us. But usually, as much as we'd love to be the most respected voice in the room, it's often not us. We're hired guns. It's expected. It's our job. Like, of course you're saying that. You're Gen H, you're YIMBY. Of course you're saying that. The public, our elected leaders, they are moved by their peers, by their colleagues, by their stakeholder leader groups, by their families and their friends. And that means they're moved by you, that you are the most important messengers. And this is exactly like trial law. So when you are in court, when you're doing a trial, you spend the week or two you're in trial watching the jurors. And luckily, people are not great actors, even when they try to be. You watch the jurors for cues, for clues that they agree with you or they don't. Are they nodding along when you talk, when your witnesses are talking? Do they scowl when opposing counsel is talking? What is their body language telling you about where they're at? And you're going to watch for them. And at the end, before you give your closing argument, you're going to have identified. You're going to be like, you agree with me. And it might just be you, one person. Sometimes it's two, sometimes it's a few, but it's often just one or two that you really know, like, I am communicating with you. We are like this. And you are going to plan your whole closing argument around that person or those persons. You're going to remember what you learned about them in jury selection. You're going to remember what moved them during your trial. And you're going to appeal to those things. And then you're going to give them the facts that they need to know and the law that they need to know to go back to the jury room and be your advocate, to deliver your message and to change the minds, just like the movie 12 Angry Men. They're going to go back there and they're going to do your job for them. So you need them to know the facts. That's what they need to know. And you need them to feel compelled to not just be passive allies, not just agree with you, but actually to argue for you. So that's who you argue to. And you do it in a really, like you're taught, you ignore the other jurors. Like it's almost rude. You actually will stand and look eye to eye with that person or those people and give that argument. Ignore the rest. We need not be concerned about them. Empower our allies to be the messengers. Okay, let's turn to lessons from some other housing advocates, our partners at NPH. I got a very short video for you.
This is an example, California pollster David Matz shared this beautiful example with me, and I'm a huge fan of it. So when you are wandering through the grocery store and you see the brownies in the brownie aisle, right? The picture, this is very easy, just literally tell me, what is the picture on the box? What is that a picture of? Brownies, picture of brownies. When you open the box, are there brownies inside of the box? There are not brownies inside of the box. What's inside the box? Powder, right? And on the back of the box, there's a recipe. You need to stop selling the recipe and start selling the brownie. People do not want your policy. Stop taking your policy out in public. It is unseemly. Nobody needs to see that. You can keep that inside of these spaces. You need to sell the payoff. When we ask people, do you want to increase the minimum wage? They're like, yes. When we say, do you think everyone should be paid enough to care for their family? They want that more. When we say, do you want paid family leave? They say, yes. When we say, do you think everyone should be there the first time their newborn smiles? They're more likely to say yes. You have to sell the payoff of your policy, not the process. Does that make sense? And I will leave it there.
Okay. Yes. Love. Oh my God, there's been a cowbell incident. Okay. Yes. So, right. So once you've identified the audience and the messenger, we have to tell them something. And what do we want to tell them? We want to tell them, we want to sell them the vision. We want to sell them the brownie, not the recipe. In our case, we want to sell them vibrant communities, not policy that supports more multifamily housing near transit. That's not, you want to live in this community. You want to feel like your community is great and everybody is getting what they need. You want to sell a thriving community that we know we all agree with. Okay, now, what the heck does cycling have to do with any of this? So here's a sign, breathe, you are alive. It is on the unknown fence, owners of this said unknown fence on Mark West Station Road in Windsor. And it is an area well traveled by cyclists. And in fact, my Strava data says I have passed it about 100 times. And when I pass it, I almost always, whether I'm alone or with friends, stop and take a picture, a selfie of myself or us by this sign, breathe, you are alive. This is kind of a quintessential Sonoma County cycling shot. And if you search my iPhone photos for the word breathe, it comes up with 45 photos. So usually I stop. Now on Occidental Road, there is a place, Occidental Road and Pasadena Lane, also well traveled by cyclists. And there was a spray painted sign, a saying on here until it was just recently chip sealed over. And so it's no longer there. And the quote was a German cyclist, famous German cyclist, Jens Voigt, a quote, shut up legs, which is going to appear on the screen right there, shut up legs. And Jens Voigt said this to a reporter who said, like, what's your mantra when races get really hard? And he said, it's shut up legs, probably with this great German accent. And it clearly motivated him, and it motivates some cyclists, and it's, people say it, we know it, the cyclists of us. And my question though to you is, I've ridden by this about as many times. And actually, no, this was about 70 times. I looked at this, about 70 times. How many times do you think I stopped and took a photo of that sign or of myself when I passed that? How many times? Shout out. Oh, there is no, oh God. So, yeah, I knew it was here. Sorry, Omar. Yes, 0. The answer is 0. Never. Why? Because breathe, you are alive. That's the vision, right? That's what we want. And that's hopeful. And that's something that makes us inspired and happy. That's the vision. Shut up, legs. That's the mission. That's like how you get there, like shut up, legs. But we gravitate to the hopeful message. That resonates with us, with the goal, with the future, with the vision. All right, another thing, driving out in rural Sonoma County, you see a lot of signs that say no dumping. Violators will be prosecuted. No basura, no dumping, violators will be prosecuted. And often what you see near those signs is trash, and a whole lot of it. This week, I took this picture this weekend of a place I roll by all the time, and it has a mattress and it has no sign, and that's because someone's actually knocked the sign down and it's now under the mattress. I checked. So the sign not only didn't stop them from putting the mattress there, but it actually was killed in the process. However, a road I go by almost as much on Grayton Road has a whole different sign. And if you can't read it, it says, beautiful creek below. Beautiful creek below. 70-ish times I've been by this sign. How many times do you think I've seen dumping by the sign that says beautiful creek below? 0. 0 times. Because that is the vision. Everyone wants the beautiful creek. Everyone wants to protect the beautiful creek. The no dumping, the bossy no dumping, that's the mission. So that's why when we're talking about housing in public, we talk not about multifamily units and policy. We talk about people. We talk about people because people either see themselves in the people we're talking about, or they know someone like it. It's in their people and their friends and family, the people who serve them coffee, the people who fix their car or take care of their mom or whoever. These are the people who work in our county and are essential workers, and that we want to have a vision of prosperity and health for. So we talk about people, and that's the only one of our images that has a building of construction in it, actually. Again, it's because it's for construction workers. And we also then talk about communities and a vision for community and how a community is healthier and more vibrant when it is making the highest and best use of its land, when it has the housing that meets people's needs, that is a stronger community. So we try to stay away from that. Oh, I'm gonna so go over time. In this advocacy work, just a minute though, I hope, very few people really need to dive into that wonky stuff, into the recipe. And when they do, it's really our job to help lift them out. They don't need to know. Now, housing is complicated, yes, but it's not rocket science. But for some reason, lay people get hung up debating policy and throwing up barriers based on the supposed complexity, or the complexity just becomes sort of the argument du jour. But when Americans wanted to land on the moon, they did not have town halls to debate orbital mechanics. We set the goal, we trusted the experts, we said, NASA, figure it out. And we've done the same with vaccines and bridges and skyscrapers. And during COVID, the public did not say vaccines are too hard, don't try. They said, get it done. The public sets the destination, makes the demand to our leaders, and the engineers and the planners and professionals, they got to work out the details. Housing should be absolutely no different. Big challenges don't require everyone to understand the engineering. They require us to agree on the goal. Our job is to lift it up to the level of importance where the public demands it and says, experts, figure it out. And you do this by selling the vision. You do this by selling the vision. What's great about housing is that because it's connected to anything, you can tailor your message to almost any audience with total authenticity, no matter who you're talking to. And I have a whole bunch of other things, but I'm out of time, so I'm just going to say I rest my case.
As she was about halfway through, I realized what a terrible moderator was because I did not look at my watch to see when she started to tell her to stop. But Zoe, that will not be the case going forward. So I will keep you on track. But let me introduce our next speaker. Zoe Seigel is the Senior Director of Climate Resilience. For the past 6 years, she's been giving a driving force at Greenbelt Alliance, which she serves as the Senior Director of Climate Resilience. And Zoe leads the Climate Smart Development Program, advances nature-based solutions, and spearheads regional efforts. So please welcome Zoe to the stage. I'm sorry, I'm also supposed to tell you that you should have cards with if you have any questions that you were given at the beginning, you can write them down, and at the end we will bring them up and we'll answer a few of them. There probably won't be a chance or an opportunity for everyone's questions, but we'll do our best. So just have those ready.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. See if this works. Okay, wonderful. Great. Yeah, so my name is Zoe Seigel. I'm the Director of Climate Resilience at Greenbelt Alliance. And for those who don't know what Greenbelt Alliance is, we're an environmental nonprofit that really works at the intersection of housing and climate issues around the Bay Area. And we've been around for about 65 years. And we were really founded to prevent sprawl. But as we've iterated with the times, it's become very clear that you can't protect open space without really addressing housing issues as well. So these are really some of the things that we believe in. It's a little dark. So we really, understand that climate threats don't stop at jurisdictional boundaries. Elected officials, CBOs, and city staff really need to understand what's happening on the ground and have the right support and the right information provided to them. And then also action at the local level plays a really critical role in the advocacy that we play. And of course, something near and dear to our heart, housing policy really is climate policy. And don't worry, I'm not going to go into a whole rant about the data between how climate policy is housing issues, housing policy, and vice versa. Hopefully you all know that and have heard that. I know Gen H is a really good partner for us and for all of our work in that issue. But I will say that where we build determines, wildfire exposure, farmland loss, and it really, in many ways, the housing map is also the emissions map. And if we push our housing to the outskirts of our region, vehicle miles traveled increases, infrastructure costs rise, and open space really disappears. And so we really work as a region with all of so many great partners in the room, like many of you, to really increase housing in the right places and protect open spaces. And so if you care about climate targets, you also care about housing. And there has been a bit of a historical divide between the housers and the environmentalists, and we really work at that intersection. And for a lot of that time, it's really been, promoting housing and advocating for environmental issues. And there really haven't been that many issues where we've really successfully brought the groups together. And that's changing. And we're really working to change that and to change some of the hearts and the minds. We do try to change people's opinions, but we acknowledge that it's hard. And I totally agree. We really work to get the folks that are a little bit more neutral. And we really focus on, in order to do this, we really focus on cross-sector partnerships. And so that's why we really value the partnerships from Generation Housing, Sonoma Valley Ecology Center, Latino service providers, so many of the other amazing Sonoma partners in the room to really make sure that the advocacy that we do is really heard on the ground. And we grow our coalitions, and through that, our legitimacy really increases. And so for Greenbelt Alliance, what cross-sector partnership really means is taking that climate credibility into the housing space, and also taking that housing climate credibility into the environmental spaces, and making sure that people understand what's happening so that we can reduce friction and really ensure that the folks are informed and know what's happening. And also simply just sharing the information is not really going to get somebody that really cares about the environment and is speaking at a city council meeting to prevent a housing development. Just telling them the facts is not going to actually change anyone's hearts and minds. And so really work to build relationships and ensure that we are building relationships and not just sharing facts. And when we do create these environmental partnerships between housing organizations and environmental organizations or other sectors as well, we work, try to work closely with the labor unions and educational partners and anyone that needs a home, which is really everyone. And whether it's, our regional work related to shoreline adaptation, sea level rise, or infill campaigns within cities, I think that the biggest shifts really have happened when we align the climate data with the housing urgency. And so we'll show up, we'll talk about climate benefits of a development, and we'll really break down the narrative of beyond just, either being pro-housing or pro-development. So oftentimes we are the, environmental face of the housing movement. We speak and we share the data and we share the information, but we also work to build the relationships and to work behind the scenes with partners and community members to know that they have the right data and the right information. And one of the ways that we have done that recently at the state level is an organization or a partnership that we have put together called the Alliance for Housing and Climate Solutions. And it's a coalition that really works to bridge the housing and environmental movements and other policy leaders, and they come together with the goal of building more homes in existing communities near transit and jobs while protecting natural and working lands, all of the things that everybody kind of agrees in theory, but disagrees with the ways in which we go about doing that. And I think this exciting effort really reframes the conversation. And instead of just, listing housing and climate goals and having them kind of compete with each other, the Alliance is working on the ground to show that smart housing policy is an important climate strategy. And we're doing this through educational campaigns, relationship building, but then also we have a policy committee that really discusses bills. Most of this is kind of bills at the state level where environmental advocates come together and learn about some of the housing policies and vice versa. And during the legislative season, we discuss bills and discuss issues that might be relevant, but we support, different things. We know that we're not all going to agree on the same things. But in the off season, we really use those opportunities to provide educational campaigns and learning opportunities so that maybe, for the next season, we'll get a few more environmental advocates to support the housing agenda or vice versa. And there have been plenty of bills that we really have gotten more environmental advocates to support our work. One good example of that would be SB 79. Senate Bill 79, the Abundant and Affordable Homes Near Transit Act that was passed this past season that allows more multifamily homes to be built roughly within a half mile of major transit stops across California. And the Alliance, Greenbelt Alliance co-sponsored the bill, but the Alliance really helped build the political coalition behind the bill that really brought environmental organizations into the conversation. And so we had educational campaigns, we talked to people, but a lot of it was really behind the scenes, having one-on-one conversations, reviewing the bill, hearing what the concerns the environmental advocates had with this bill, and then being able to make those changes, speak to the elected officials, and make the adjustments. And I want to say that, at the end, it was a huge success, and we got all the environmental advocates to support the bill willingly. Not so much, but we did get a significant movement, and we got a lot more environmental advocates, environmental organizations no longer opposing the bill. And like Jen was saying, we're not going to change everyone's hearts and minds, and we'll take a neutral position over an anti position. So we consider that a win. And that's really the exact kind of cross-movement collaboration that the Alliance and Greenbelt Alliance overall is really trying to advance, and really showing that if we want to tackle both the housing crisis or the housing need, not crisis, we can really work together and have these shared goals on these land use policies. And so kind of coming back to the local level, there's a lot of ways to be a good partner across the housing organizations or environmental organizations, or really across any sectors. And I think I thought a lot about, what it means to be a good partner. I've been doing environmental advocacy for over a decade now, and including housing advocacy, of course. And I think a lot of the time, a partnership doesn't really mean launching a huge joint partnership project or agreeing on absolutely everything. And some of the most impactful things we can do are really just like digital low lift ways to support each other. For example, something really simple would be promoting other organizations' work online or in person, showing up, speaking out in support, sharing action alerts, either, co-sponsoring an action alert, or maybe something that's outside of, your organization's realm, just pressing share online, and then really celebrating other organizations' wins. I think, especially online, it goes a really far way, even if it's not a core issue to your organization, to just highlight the work that partners do. And sometimes that does mean that, you need to support an issue that's slightly outside the scope of your work. I know every organization is really worried about mission creep, but being able to support other organizations' work that goes slightly beyond the work that you do plays a really big role in building those partnerships, building those relationships, and will ultimately help you further your agenda as well. And you can also partner on like larger educational campaigns, but none of these things are particularly complicated, but together they create this really great network where organizations can really actively strengthen each other's work rather than competing for attention or resources or something like that. And on the topic of shared goals, these are just some examples of some of the social media posts that we've done, kind of just explainers on, why green belts are important for environmental issues or housing issues, breaking down CEQA. Now having people in our network that really, we have a lot of people in our network that really understand the ins and outs of the housing issues, and a lot of people that don't. So creating explainers that like how CEQA works and why it's important, and how it doesn't work and how we need to change it so that it's not this like mysterious thing anymore. Here's an example of some of the action alerts that we've co-sponsored and led. And then really, we also, since we work at the intersection of climate and housing issues, we're really aware of our brand and making sure that we're not only creating action alerts to stop housing, that we're also creating action alerts to promote housing and construct more housing elsewhere. So really thinking about that balance and thinking about like who we partner with and how we partner with them in that effort. And then it's not, when you think about partnerships, I think we think a lot about, our policy teams speaking on behalf of, advocacy organizations, but a lot of the partnerships come down to the communications team. Usually those people might be, behind the scenes, sitting at home. And a lot of the work is really, building relationships between the communications staff at your, agencies or organizations, and highlighting each other's works through, highlighting the staff or highlighting on a tour, and really getting out into the world and highlighting each other's works in real tangible ways. And then when you do ask for support, I think this goes for any agency or any project, but make it simple. Nobody's going to try very hard to support, to show up and support. But if you give all of the information to them, there's a much higher likelihood that they will show up and that they will actually, or sign the letter or the petition or do the thing that you want them to do if you make it really easy. So those are some of the harder thing, the easier things. Some of the bigger lift things I think would be coming together around, shared goals and like larger partnerships. And that can produce, larger structural wins. I think one example of that was parking reform that has been mentioned briefly. I know downtown Santa Rosa, the station area has reduced their parking, but that's something that could be done kind of at a larger scale elsewhere across Sonoma County. And then there's other sort of newer innovative building methods that I think was also mentioned, like mass timber construction. Mass timber buildings store carbon rather than emitting it like traditional concrete and steel. And they also allow for faster construction that can reduce the embodied emissions of new housing. And so this is a space where housing advocates and environmental groups can really work together to support sustainable forestry, update building codes, and really expand climate-friendly building materials. And then also, of course, wildfire risk and rebuilding. I think Generation Housing is an incredible leader in this space already. Yeah, and then I think, just closing, cross-sector partnership is hugely important, because when housers and environmental leaders come together with solutions like these, we move from kind of defending individual priorities to designing climate resilient communities for the future. And we're not in a moment where we can really afford siloed victories. The climate crisis is accelerating, the housing crisis is deepening, and the political environment is getting harder and harder to pass big solutions. And so environmentalists can't meet climate goals without housing reform. Housing advocates can't solve affordability without climate-aligned land use. And cross-sector partnership really isn't about compromise, it's about building power. And so I would like to challenge each of you to maybe step outside of your issue lane at one point this year, bring climate credibility into the housing space, and housing credibility into the environmental space, and really build the relationships that you need before the next fight begins, because I think the future of the environmental movement really belongs to movements that learn how to build together. So thank you.
Okay, well, joining us virtually is a leader who proves that the most impactful strategies are rooted in the heart. As a world-renowned consultant and strategic closer, she has raised nearly $1 billion for nonprofits across the globe. We're gonna have to talk. Her work has been featured everywhere from The Atlantic to Metallica's blog. But what truly sets her apart isn't just the numbers she moves. Having personally navigated homelessness, she brings a deeply grounded perspective to the missions she transforms. The title of her presentation is called "Making Your Story Sticky." And so to show us how storytelling can redefine our impact, please welcome the president and CEO of Cat Slack Consulting, Cat Slack.
Thank you. Okay, because I'm not there, I just need you all to raise your hands if you can hear me. I love it. I love a responsive crowd. So I'm Cat Slack. It'd be weird if it were someone else as the CEO of Cat Slack Consulting. I have worked in fundraising my whole career, and I love stories. This love started when I was a young girl, and my grandfather wowed me with all of the adventures that would happen in Michigan in the iron mines when he was a kid. And I've taken that love of stories and I've turned it into kind of what I do, which is match people with care and capacity and the change they wish to see in the world through fundraising. So today, okay, that's me. So today the plan is to teach you how to make some stories stick. We heard earlier, it's not about the stats. It's not about the facts sometimes. It's really just about connection. So if we really want to connect with people, well, they have to remember us. And it's those small moments that help people remember big ideas. I'll also cover the tell from a scar, not a wound philosophy, since many of us work with folks who've experienced trauma. And then there is a little short link to a survey at the end. So get your phones ready. So you're going to leave with how to tell memorable stories and how to share other stories with dignity, including your own. So before we start, I want you to mentally make note, or if you have a notepad, I want you to think about, why are you involved? What moment led you or moved you to care and become an active advocate instead of a passive one? And it may not have been one moment. It may have been many. When people ask me about how I got involved in fundraising, I often tell this story. I have literally told this story thousands of times. And I remember it very clearly. I came back from the Peace Corps and I thought, hey, I really like this service thing. I want to do more of that here. But I didn't really know how. And one day I was walking south of Market in San Francisco. I was going to some hip new club or something like that. It was in my 20s. And there was this man sleeping on the sidewalk. He was sleeping, his feet went all the way to the building. His head was right at the curb. There was this big box truck and a bunch of traffic. I couldn't go around him. And I had to lift up my leg and step over this man. Now he was sleeping. He didn't know any better. But that was the moment when I decided, oh, this is the thing I want to work on. I didn't tell you about any statistics. I didn't tell you about the need. It was just that guy. And he changed my life. I have no idea who he is. But I kind of like send out thanks every time I tell that story because it changed my life for the better. That's why I've chosen this work. It's so easy to think that, oh gosh, if I'm going to really like move this room, or if I'm going to make this point, or if I'm going to help move this person from being a passive advocate to an active advocate, I really need to know this, and I need to have a brochure. And just like everybody's been saying today, I need to make it easy. But actually, at its very core, people need you. And for you to do that well, you need to know your why. And you need to know it so simply, so quickly to be able to share. And so that's why I want you to think about that moment or those moments that really led you to say, okay, I'm going to do something. You all are the change makers. Many of you are already doing. And when I talk about what it's like to fundraise, people are always like, oh, fundraising. I love it. And the reason I love it is because as fundraisers, you are a bridge. And as change makers, you are this bridge. As leaders, you are this bridge. You are the bridge between people with care and capacity and the change they wish to see in the world. You are never nagging people or bothering them. You are giving them this opportunity to leave a legacy, to do something good. And not everybody has a job where they get to do that all day. And this is a very rare thing to be able to do. And so I really love celebrating the fact that you are all bridges. We are bridges. Listen, bridges, we got work to do. We gotta, when we're doing this, tell people stories that help them remember it. And like in a way that they may forget your name, but they will not forget the story you told. So how do you make them stick? All right, show of hands. How many of you know who Jackie Cochran is? All right. Well, I'm going to tell you. So the thing about sticky stories is you want to tell a lot of details, or you want to tell some very specific ones. So Jackie Cochran, she was an aviator, and in 1938, she was about to win she was about to break the record for flying across the country for the fastest person to do so. And as she landed her plane, she'd gone through a whole lot to get there. It had been very cold. Back then, planes weren't like heated. There was not a lot of comfort involved in flying. And it was a little bit of a daredevil situation. She lands the plane. She glides her plane across the tarmac, comes to a stop, and all these reporters are coming over because not only is she breaking the record, it's a she that's breaking the record, which was a very big deal. And so they're running over and they're like, Jackie, Jackie, how'd you do it? How do you feel? What's going on? Were you scared? And she doesn't open the cockpit. You'd think she'd like pop that sucker open, but no. The first thing she does when she stops that plane is she reaches underneath her seat and she pulls out her compact and she puts on some red lipstick and she makes sure she looks good. And she shuts that compact, puts it all away, and then she opens up that top of the plane and she hops out. Now, if somebody asks you tomorrow or next week, who's Jackie Cochran? What's the image that's going to pop into your head? It's that lipstick. Now, I will admit, Jackie would not have liked to have been remembered just for red lipstick. I know we're like leaning into a stereotype here, which I think is also kind of funny because she knew that she had to wear red lipstick because there was different standards for her. That's a whole nother talk, folks. The thing is, you don't remember the story, the full story. You remember these moments, you remember these images because it's those small moments that help people remember big ideas. I'm going to give you one more example of it. When I first started working at the food bank down in Silicon Valley, they did this campaign and we tested some different ideas. And one was about like telling people to donate because, you know, some families just don't have a lot of food. I mean, it's true. Is it very compelling? Another way we told that story was we said, you come home and you go to your fridge, and your fridge is one of those older fridges. It's that kind of like beige color from the like 1970s and 80s. And you open up your fridge door and it sticks a little, the handle's a little loose. And inside the light flickers on. And on the shelf is some ketchup, some packets of soy sauce, and a nearly empty bag of tortillas. Which one defines hunger? Which one really painted that picture? Which one is the story? It turns out the one that's not a story is the story. That's the one that moved people. The best way to make stories stick is to overuse senses. Talk about the way it smells, the way it tastes, the way it looked, the way it feels. Talk about the temperature. give more detail than you need to? Did I need to tell you about Jackie Cochran's red lipstick? No, but you know what? You're not going to forget her because I did. I could have told you that when she died, she had more records beat than any other aviator. But that's not, oddly, what's going to lodge in our brain. So the trick for this is to make things sticky by using all of your senses. So I want to challenge you, take that why, that reason you got involved in this, and overuse some senses. Like talk about what you were wearing, talk about the weather, talk about anything that can give it more detail, because that will help people remember. Your why is a powerful thing, and that's all people really need to want to follow you, to become active in this advocacy. The next thing I want to share with you is about telling from a scar, not a wound. I started fundraising, and at the time it was very popular to have a gala and bring someone out on stage and make the audience cry. And you would raise money if you did those things. And so I was like, well, okay, if that's how you do it, I'm going to do it. And I was very good at it, but I didn't like it. It felt a little icky. And the thing is, it felt icky because oftentimes the person that's telling their story really isn't ready. If you were to record that story and show them 3 years from now, would they feel proud of that moment? So I got to thinking about it and I thought, well, if we can tell stories from a place of dignity, there needs to be a way to like recognize it. And once I was working with this woman and she, her name was Clarabelle, and she had left a domestic violence situation in the middle of the night. She took her kids, scooted out the door, and she found shelter with a friend, and then she found shelter with an organization locally, and started getting food from the food bank, and really like found all these resources. Amazing story. Like this is going to be the win for fundraising. And then she started telling me about how painful that night was. And she started crying. And then she says, I can't do this because I don't want my kids to know, because that's still their dad. It would have been really terrible to tell her story. It would have been great for our revenue. The reason I say this is sometimes the best story, the one that you think might be the one that will move people, isn't ready yet. Because if they tell that story, it'll reharm them. One of the things that's interesting about our brains is that we can relive trauma when we retell stories. And I will say that like it's very therapeutic sometimes to talk about trauma. I mean, that's what therapy is. But doing that in the wrong setting is actually harming. And so it's really critical that when we tell stories of people who've experienced housing crises, who've experienced hardship in this space, that we help them tell that story from a scar, not a wound, because the people listening can tell, and they can tell if it's icky. So I want to encourage you to do that. One thing, one last thing I'll share about this is a little while back, I was featured in this magazine, and one of the questions they asked was, what has been one of the biggest obstacles you've overcome in your life? And I thought about it and I thought, wow, you know, if I were asked this 10 years ago, I'd say that the biggest obstacle in my life was the abuse I endured as a child and the homelessness I endured as a teenager. But now, I know that the biggest obstacle for the longest time was the story I told myself about who I was. It was that wound. And once I realized that that was just one of my stories and I am 1,000 other stories, then I really had power out of that story. So there are 1,000 other stories. Don't ever get locked in on that one. Your job is to tell the story and make it memorable. I just want to say thank you. You have all willingly come together today to do good. And this is what community looks like. And I'm delighted I got to attend even from here. Sonoma County is my home in my heart, and I will be back. But I just want to say I admire this group. I'm so grateful to Generation Housing and I work day to day with nonprofits who need help raising the resources to get their jobs done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kat. Our next speaker is Sonja Trauss. She is a pioneer who turned a local grassroots effort into a global movement. In 2014, Sonja began organizing renters in the Bay Area, a spark that grew into the Yes in My Backyard, or YIMBY movement, now spanning 25 states. As executive director of YIMBY Law, she ensures pro-housing laws aren't just written, but they're actually enforced, which sounds really important to me. So please welcome Sonja.
Hey, thank you guys so much. This has been a really inspiring day, and I'm getting really tired of getting inspired. So hopefully you have more stamina for inspiration. Yeah, so I'm the executive director of YIMBY Law, and our C4 partner is YIMBY Action, and we do have chapters here. I know there's at least one. Here we go. You want to stand up, Abby, and wave? There's a Santa Rosa chapter. Oh, here we go. What's your name? Jocelyn. Okay, here's Jocelyn. So talk to them after if you want to join up with us. Yeah, so I started organizing pro-housing renters when I lived in Oakland, but I was organizing people in Oakland and San Francisco to say yes to housing, initially mostly in San Francisco. Now we have 87 chapters in 25 states, people who say yes to housing. So we've heard a lot about being pro-housing generally, and what I'm going to talk about in particular is organizing people to show up for specific housing developments. We organize people to support market rate housing and subsidized housing, and we organize people to show up sometimes outside of their own communities because housing shortages impact not just one neighborhood, but the whole region. Okay, I'll finally start. Oh, so and this presentation will be things that I have found are motivating. All right, so the first thing, the foundation of getting people to actually show up to support specific housing developments is to remind people that we each have an endowment of political capital, right? You are a political actor, and your warm body, beating heart is actually enough. A lot of people get really discouraged because we're looking at federal politics and we feel like, what does our one voice do? But when you're talking to a city council person or you're talking to a planner, that 5 or 15-minute conversation you have with them takes up a significant amount of their waking day, and it makes an impression. And so, don't sell yourself short. It is actually important for you to show up and do a thing. It is one more brick in the wall. This gives like all of the amazing reasons to do specific, housing project advocacy for specific projects. I'm not going to cover every single one of them, but I did want to have the list. This is about enforcement. It's about implementation, because we can have all of the great pro-housing laws we want or good local zoning, but when a specific project comes up, if it gets killed or delayed for some reason, then it was all for naught. And yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about theory of change. The core notion of organizing is, this is a kind of to illustrate that brick in the wall, right? That you want to have a lot of people working in concert, so there's a lot of fish, and they're also, working together to make themselves look big. So even if it seems like only 10 or 20 or 30% of the community agrees on something, if those people are visible, then they're like this fish. Okay, so one of the greatest things about showing up, probably if you're here, you've experienced this, showing up in person to a planning meeting to support housing, is it's actually surprisingly fun. Look, I started doing this. I had moved to the Bay Area. I was 30 years old. I was like, I was living in West Oakland. I was like, I need to make friends. What did I do the last time I needed to make friends when I was 15? I started going to house shows, like concerts in people's garages or in their living rooms. I was like, I'll do that. So I was doing that and everybody else was 15. And I was like, oh, I'm 30. This is not the way to make friends anymore, you know? So I was like, well, what do I like? I like reading about local politics. I like having opinions. I have opinions. So I'm gonna go to city council meetings. I'm gonna go to planning commission meetings. I'm gonna tell them what my opinions are. I'm gonna connect with other people who care about local politics. It's my whole friend group. When my son was born and, oh no, when I was pregnant, my partner, my friend Laura, my partner in activism, threw me a baby shower. And one of the attendees came and was like, I kind of came just to see if you had any other friends outside of politics. And I see no, the answer is no. The other thing that's really, this is really great. If you have a group or if you don't have a group, you can just make one on the fly, gets you in the newspaper. It is such a path to visibility because reporters write about locally controversial projects and they need to have a both sides. So you might say to yourself, I'm gonna be the only person at this meeting. We're gonna get swamped, it's no point. And you have 10 people who hate the project and you're there and you like the project. Well, when they write up what happened at the meeting, only 1 in 10 of the NIMBYs is gonna get a quote, but you're definitely gonna get a quote. And they will keep you in their speed dial because every time there's a housing controversy, they're gonna need to get, oh, hi, you know, we need somebody to say why this housing's good. Because they have to have both sides. And so this is a really, really great way to start to kickstart your group. You and like 2 other people put up a website, have a name, bam, you have a group because you are, you know, representing one side of an issue and they have to be covering both sides. This is just another example, you know, Jordan Grimes works with Zoe. He's very famous on the internet. He speaks up a lot, gets in the newspaper. Oh, so here's another thing that's great about it. It really demonstrates power to electeds because the kind of people who are dragging their butts to a hearing or even writing an email, I think electeds know that that's the kind of person who in your friend group, when it's time to vote for someone, your friends are going to be asking you, who should I vote for, right? You're the person in the friend group that pays attention to local politics. So again, it's not about like raw numbers necessarily, but if they see that active folks are pro-housing, that's like very credible and shows that the kind of like the right kind of person, you know what I mean, is pro-housing. Like the kind of person that actually cares is gonna door knock, maybe even donate, and most importantly, be influencing their friends. This is kind of the biggest question that people have. You know, as an individual, you have your own preferences. You are going to be making your own decisions about what to spend time on. Same as a group. People are saying to themselves, what should we be supporting? At YIMBY, when we started out, one of the problems that I saw and the reason why housing was like really not getting built is although there were pro-housing folks, everybody had a like yes but, right? There were people who were like, we support affordable housing but not market rate, you know, and we support housing in an exclusive community, but you know, not in like a more affordable area, or we're only going to support large projects. And the housing need was so great that we felt like we needed folks who were just going to be like, yes, whatever. If it's perfect, if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. Let's do it. So I do challenge people to try, obviously support the types of housing that you think is the best, and try to challenge yourself to support 1 or 2 things a year that you kind of hate. And I'll be honest, like I hate micro units. I'm so uninspired by those projects. I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't want to live there, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters, right? It's housing. Somebody wants to live there. So I support that stuff anyway. So yeah, we have this range here. YIMBY, more projects. We are, you know, we encourage people to support everything. YIMBY is not a slur. That's what people call themselves too. This is quality in my backyard. These folks will have like more requirements and you just wind up supporting less housing. So yeah, the yes in my backyard it can be literal, but it's also metaphorical, right? Sometimes the backyard is your own preferences. Yeah, go for it. And that's it. Speak up for housing, become a YIMBY Action member. You'll get action alerts. Some people criticize our members and they say, you guys are here, you're paid. Soros is paying you to support housing. The reality is our members pay to support housing. They put in their membership money every month and we send them action alerts. But it's a fun time. And yeah, like I said, here's Abby and I forgot her name, I'm sorry. Jacqueline. Okay, so talk to them. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Sonja. Now, I think I'm going to have the panelists come up actually and sit up here because are there anybody that have questions on a card that they'd like answered?
This is not really a question, more of a comment, but I'm not the moderator.
Did I not see any cards? Okay. Can we have somebody come up and grab the cards? Oh, we got someone come back over here that's going to run around and grab them for us. All right, we'll start with these and then you can keep your eye out. How about that? Thank you. All right, the first question is for Zoe. It says, are local Greenbelt chapters supposed to support housing? Greenbelt chapters.
The question was, are local Greenbelt chapters supposed to support housing?
Yes.
Well, Greenbelt Alliance doesn't have local chapters. We are not a membership-based organization. And so as an organization, we definitely support local housing. We have a development endorsement program. So if all you developers out there, if you're looking for support, definitely reach out to my colleague, Andrew. And we would love to have the committee review and support that project. So yes, I guess the answer would be yes.
All right, the next question is on behalf of the Humane Society of Sonoma County. It says the primary reason for pet surrender requests is housing that doesn't allow pets. It says this can be devastating for the family and reduces positive outcomes for some pets. How can our organization participate in supporting pet-friendly housing in our community and keep pets with the people who love them?
Well, I'm going to answer that first. Does this work?
I think it was off. Just, yeah. See, there you go.
Wow, I'm going to use that. So what I want to know is what characterizes housing that allows, right? Is it, and if you don't know that, if you find that out, that's going to be the key to various kinds of advocacy, right? So is it typically like a larger landlord, you know, like a Gray Star or Avalon Bay, some big apartment building? Are they more likely to allow pets or less? You know, is it small landlords that are opposed or that are saying no pets, or are small landlords more likely to allow pets, right? Like, if we get a little more info, then yeah, we can make arguments. Or like, what's the barrier? I mean, is there a pet? Is there like a pet insurance that landlords could buy? Right? We need more facts, and then we can. That's pretty cool.
I've also heard there's like a cat. I've heard of like a cat tax or something where like, you know, the cats have to pay a monthly rent and that kind of thing. And I think, you know, one way to address that would be to make this more of a renter's market and build more housing so that the larger developers are really squeezed and really have to be able to be open to accepting more tenants. So become a YIMBY.
Thank you. So this next one is for Kat. So I'm glad we have one for Kat here on the screen. Can you talk more about the types of messages that stick about housing needs?
Absolutely. I think the personal ones are the ones that people want to hear. They want to hear you talk about your experience. So a great example is we just heard. This is like make the story come alive in a different way, talking about how when folks have a pet and what happens if they can't keep it. There are even that idea, you can kind of flesh that out a little bit more and describe using multiple senses what that might feel like. I think also, and I'm not saying like, oh, this is the one church story, but you could talk about how important your pet is to you. And then that translates into the critical nature of solving that problem. So it's not always the thing that you're talking about. You're talking about how it affects you and how you process it. So it can come alive in a lot of different ways. Your experience, another great example is, did you change your mind ever about, did you become a YIMBY or move or see how something is much more doable because you learned more about it? What was that like when you did it? Not necessarily the issue, kind of like that brownie example we heard earlier.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The next question, I think for anyone up here, maybe for Jen, is SB4, affordable housing on church and private school college land. How much of is being used in the Bay Area? Have we seen the needle move at all on that?
That's a great question. I think Sonja might have a great law.
Sure. We actually, at the beginning of last year, we did a report on Minnesota. We did well reports, a California report. Okay. Okay, so it's actually quite hard for folks to use. Most of the examples of faith-based lands to housing are using some other law like SB 35 or 1120 or a local faith-based lands program. In San Diego, they have a local version that's like amazing. The thing that makes it really hard to use, guys, the law basically makes it impossible for educational institutions and churches to make money from the project. So suppose you're an organization, you're the CEO, you're the YMCA, you're like, we want to do this thing. In order to use SB4, it has to be like revenue neutral, or you need to go get subsidies. And so it turns from something that's like an attractive project that everybody needs money to run their church or school. It's not, if you're trying to do it and you think you're going to make money to run your church or school, no go. So yeah, they really handicapped it that way. And when we went back to try to say, like, can you change this to make it more attractive for these institutions to actually do it? We were told that that was like politically impossible because the narrative around it was like, oh, these churches are just going to be building subsidized housing for low-income folks in their neighborhood. And people were like, oh, it's very heartwarming. And it is heartwarming. And of course, that's what we want. But like, churches are not affordable housing developers, right? Affordable housing developers are affordable housing developers. If the church if it's not something in it for them, they're just not going to do it. So I think it should be heartwarming also to create ways for these institutions to be able to raise money to achieve their purpose. Like, to me, that's also heartwarming, but maybe the politics will change.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we were in avid discussions as the YMCA with Senator Wiener's office about that, and they decided not to include the YMCA in their bill, and maybe that worked out for the best. Yeah, so interesting. Okay, next question. Sonja, I understand YIMBY, I'm having a hard time reading this word.
Is it a curse word?
No, that I would be fine saying.
Read all those.
I understand YIMBY something power when lots of people self-identify as YIMBY. Our local officials tend to be more influenced when lots of random people talk. How do you think about this trade-off?
Yeah, this might be about, actually, did the person who wrote this want to just stand up and shout out?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't.
Yeah. Hey. Wow. Right. Right. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. And I feel so ambivalent about it, right? Because on the one hand, I'm like, gosh, victims of our own success. Like, this is kind of cool. So the main thing is to lead, like Kat said, we are always trying to tell people to lead with their story and with something about themselves. And we have been telling people to mention their affiliation like at the end of their comment to try to get the best of both worlds, right? So you start in with like, I work in this community, or I own small business, or I live here, or like whatever your story is. And you know, I have recently had to give up my cat because I couldn't find an apartment that fit me, you know, and have your story. And so hopefully they're kind of like drawn in and they're like, okay, yeah. And then at the end they could say, and actually, you know, the way we even tell people to do it is sometimes that uh, to say like to other folks, like we have this really great group, say the name of the group, and we organize for housing. And if there's anybody else here who has questions for us, come talk to me. So it's also a little bit of an organizing, you know, thing. But that's really quite interesting. And I would say though, you are right about the wanting to capture the like power of the movement. Like, look how many people we organized. And so I would a little bit discount some of these naysaying comments from electeds, because I think in general, whether you're an elected or not, people will kind of pretend that things aren't impacting them when they actually are. So you can take it with a grain of salt, I would say. Yeah.
I want to just kind of echo that. I think you can take it with a grain of salt, A. And B, I think also if you tell people to lead with their story, the most important thing is that the electeds are getting stories from lots of different kinds of people, like curating you know, there are people there who say like, I'm worried about my kids. And there are people there who are like, I just graduated from college and I this and that. And then there's a faith leader, and then there's the chamber, and then there's the that. And then you've curated a pretty powerful cross section. And if they say like, in our case, like if they all say, I did, when we started the organization, I had this fantasy that everybody would be up there in their Gen H t-shirts and hats and be like, we are Gen H. And then I realized like, that's not actually the best thing. Like it's kind of a mix. You want the organization to have power, but you also really want them to see that the community is represented. So I think just kind of a mix, sort of echo.
Thank you. So we got a couple questions that are kind of similar. Well, that kind of bring up transportation and as a barrier. So in Sonoma County, most opposition to housing projects falls into three categories: traffic, parking, and congestion. Should we also not be advocating for more effective transportation infrastructure in Sonoma County? Policies and solutions that reduce dependency on cars and reduce VMTs. Then the second question of that is the barrier of multifamily housing still a barrier to low carbon EV adoption, electric vehicles. So multifamily units not having charging stations, basically. You know, how can we address that as well?
I know that well, first of all, in our endorsement criteria, we definitely give extra points for having charging stations and for bike share programs and all that stuff, and how close you are to housing. I think we do everything we can to support that. But there is just a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation here. And you got to pull some lever at some point. And I don't think they're going to create more bus routes until they're the people to ride them. So I think that, particularly since that you saw on the Maslow's hierarchy of need, that housing is at the bottom of that, is at the foundation. You got to pull the housing lever so there are more people. And then I think that the city and the county, the transportation systems are going to respond. If they have more riders, if there's more need, they're going to respond and create more transportation routes. That would be my answer. But we absolutely have to advocate for both. They do go hand in hand. They are equity issues. They are climate action this. But got to we're going to say pull that housing lever, and the bus people will follow.
Yeah, it's, this one is a little bit of a trick question, because there are so many good points, right? Like what Jen is saying is one of the first things that I would always say, which is that, yeah, you're not going to get you're not going to get investment in transit if you don't have the people. But it is actually a little bit of a rabbit hole, because then you're like explaining the scoring system the federal government uses. So don't go down that rabbit hole, you know, but I have been down that rabbit hole a lot of times. So that's how I know that I'm like, wait, no. And it's tough. I saw a study and I couldn't find it. So if anybody else finds it, send it to me, that all over the country, in every type of community, rich and poor, every ethnicity, the number one concern is traffic and parking, you know? And because it is real, like traffic is people, we are traffic. If you have more people, you have more people. Like it's a tautology, is real. And so that, my thoughts on this are not fully formed yet, but what I've started doing is like addressing it a little bit more head on, being like, you're right. You're right. People love hearing that they're right. So you're already like in a great place. You're right. There is going to be more traffic, and traffic is people, and the housing is going to bring all of these benefits. So do you think you could still support it knowing that everything in life has downsides? And another thing is that I've been trying to pitch people on this, that it's not always, the problem isn't always more cars. You can have more cars on the road. You can even be going more slowly. But if you have certain types of infrastructure, it doesn't have to be so unpleasant, right? Everybody knows the difference. Like if you're stopped and then you're going for 40 miles an hour and then you're stopped, it's quite more unpleasant than if you're just going 20 miles an hour, you know? And so there are smart ways that your local government can build your roads so that even if you have more people, it's not quite as unpleasant.
All right. Just as an aside to that, I saw an economic futurist a while back talk about self-driving cars being the future, and that nobody will actually own their own cars. You'll have a subscription to a self-driving car that will just show up whenever you need one. So you won't have a place to park a car in your own house or your own apartment complex. They'll be parked somewhere else. And so maybe that just solves their problem right there. Just go that way. Yeah, it was a weird discussion, but it actually made some sense. So we'll see. Okay, so with that, we got about a little less than 10 minutes left. What I want you to do, because at the end of hearing a lot of information, the best way of retaining it and to kind of do something with that is to have a plan. So I want you to turn to your partner, someone next to you, and talk about something that resonated with you today from our speakers and what you're going to do when you leave with that information, okay? And then we might pick on one or two of you in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes each, and then I'll call you back. All right, ready? Go.
Jurisdictions, right?
That's right. So you can sign up. So right now you can point your answer box at the QR code and you can sign up for action alerts in specific jurisdictions. I want them for Cotati and Sonoma and Rohnert Park. I want them for the Napa. Right now it's only in this particular list, is just say Napa Valley as if it's all one, but later there will be a little bit more specificity there. But you want to sign up for action alerts so you know when to show up, and we let you know. We try to make it easy for you. Try to make it easy. All right, is everyone who's not signed up for that yet have an opportunity to do that? I don't know if I saw a lot of phone. I feel like do we need to get up and stretch?
I'll sell it one more way.
Okay.
NIMBYs are really terribly organized at this part. They show up, but they show up to everything. I just watched a Yountville meeting where this big controversial project isn't on the agenda, but they got all their famous muckety mucks to come and complain at the wrong meeting. You don't want to be complaining at the wrong meeting. When you organize people, you want to use their time as a valuable, treasured resource, and that is what the action alert does. So
People show up to say no. We have to show up to say yes. We gotta be big there. Okay, what's next? Oh, public Slack. We have a Slack channel. It's the We Are Gen H Slack channel that we put news alerts out or news articles out on, or research papers, and sometimes like invite you to an event or social things, sometimes just like funny stuff. It's a great way to communicate. If you're already on Slack, then this is easy. if you're not already on Slack, it might be a little bit more challenging at first, but it is a good way to stay informed. YIMBY has a great Slack, and it creates great community. You get great information for it. It's a great way for us to get information out and to stay kind of engaged in your fun new social life that Sonja talked about when she gave her presentation. She's like, I have all my friends on Slack. No, but
That's exact. So I know somebody in this audience who's already on Slack, and it would mean so much to me if Sonja Trauss, founder of SF Barf, and now a respectable defeater of the California Bar Association lately and advocate, would you join our public Slack, Sonja?
Yes, I will join. Yes.
okay.
Oh,
All right. Oh my God, we've made it. We've made it. Okay, so is there a next slide on here? Oh yeah, follow us on Facebook.
do it.
Do it.
I don't have a cell on that. It's like, what do you
Do it.
want? Updates from your uncle?
Is everyone on their phone on their Facebook right now, or scanning the QR to make it easy? Okay, follow us on Facebook. You'll get to see more of Ryan because he's doing more videos.
That's usually, if you don't follow us, we're
Yeah,
gonna
or
send
follow
you
us.
more
We
videos
are
of
doing-
Ryan.
We are doing more short form videos because apparently that's how the world communicates now. And yeah, follow us on Instagram. It means a lot. Again, the electeds think everyone is talking about it if there's more Instagram activity. So this is important. And it does mean more people are talking about it, but it's really important to create that strong advocacy environment. Okay, what's next? Subscribe to our YouTube. We have so many awesome videos on our YouTube. If you thought that we had some good content here today, we have lots of content from our past events, from our past webinars. There's lots of good educational stuff on there. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Everything from the session today was streamed live. So if you missed the condo session or you just want to rewatch it, because
Right.
that's all already on the YouTube channel. And that happens at a lot of our events. And
That's
so
right. That's right. If you want to watch it again, I'm a rewatcher. I'm a rewatcher of
I'm
things.
clipping it.
Yeah, this is exciting. Okay, and next. Oh, next is me. Next is, look, back to cycling. No, this action, it is not that hard, but you have no idea how important it is to show up for public comment. You get that action alert and you actually show up and make public comment, to write a letter to the editor, to create some more social media, some social media traffic that helps get the word out. It is so powerful. All right, I hope everybody's learned something today, been inspired by the presenters, inspired by each other. I hope you're kind of locked into your personal commitments for your next right action and that you're reinvigorated, ready to do this necessary work for the whole next year. We can't do it without you, without your membership, without your action, without your financial support. But if you're in this room right now, it's because you really care about this. And you know that we've got to do this. And so you know that we can't fail at this. We got to just keep trying. And I'm going to close with one last lesson from cycling. Oh, we lost. There it is. Okay, this is a picture I have probably many, many versions of this picture. If you don't recognize it, that's the Alexander Valley. Probably some of the wine we'll drink is grown right there. It is at the top of Pine Flat Road. And when you start cycling and you start doing the big climbs, you start thinking like, oh, soon this will get easier. And then it never, ever gets easier. And the reason, American cyclist Greg LeMond said very simply, it never gets easier. He said very simply, it never gets easier. You just go faster. Because when you care about something, you always care to do your very best. And you're never done and it's never perfect. It's kind of like back to the lessons from lawyering, and Martin probably knows this. When you used to file legal briefs and stuff in person at the clerk's office, lawyers were lined up and court runners were lined up at 4:55 p.m. I don't know what those clerks did the rest of the day, because everyone came at 4:55 p.m. on their deadline day, because it's really hard when you care about something to be like, this is perfect. and be done with it. No, you just keep working. It never gets easier. You just get better at it. And we're going to just keep getting better at it and keep getting more powerful. But that's why it is really, really critical that we come together to learn, why we come together to build skills and build knowledge and build community. And it really is an honor to do this work with you good folks who keep showing up. And I love seeing new people here. Thank you so much for being new people here. And we are going to finish with one last question. You need your phone for this. So I need to see everybody's phone. And then this is my finishing up. Let me just also tell you that Lauren, our board chair, is going to come and do a quick evaluation with you too, but that's going to be 2 minutes. But I swear you're going to be in 2 minutes, you're going to have a glass of wine. And the last question is, again, the same question we started with. Everybody, what is the one word that best expresses how you feel about housing right now? Someone take that picture right now in the North Bay. Yeehaw. Okay. Right now, everybody answer it. Enthusiastic, inspired, hopeful, progress? Yes. This is what we love to see at the event, at the end of the event. Keep adding those words, keep adding those words. And Lauren Taylor, who is our advisory board chair from Burbank Housing, is going to come up here and lead you. You still need your phones in an evaluation of this event. Here she comes. She's coming. I keep saying she's coming, and I swear it's true. She's coming. And I will thank you again for being here. I'll see you in the next room where we're going to have some fun.
Thank you. I'm really just up here. Yes, Jen, thanks for the introduction. I'm Lauren Taylor. I have the privilege of serving on the advisory board and also serving at Burbank Housing next door. So it wasn't a long commute for me today. But really, I'm actually up here to say thank you to Jen. Thank you to the Gen H team. Thank you to the speakers today. Thank you to all of you for making the time to be here and for engaging in this way. So yes, we are about to have a reception. The last thing we want you to do is even great things like this event today have room for improvement and change. So if you could take the last 2 minutes, I think there's 5 questions on this feedback page. Some of the questions I was told really also help with our grant applications, so thank you for that. Anyone who does grants will relate to that. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Complete that, and then I think we get to invite you to go next door, I guess. Thank you.